You are listening to the Independent Dealer Podcast with hosts Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
Hello and welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Dealership Consulting.
Yes, and so today, Jeff can't talk, so I get to introduce what we got going on. So Jeff was talking earlier off the air. Y'all didn't get to hear it, but we are buy here, pay here dealers, and we need an expert coming in and talking about retail because we really want to cover some retail aspects because right now the market is, in my opinion, probably cooling a little bit on the retail side, and buy here, pay here is getting stronger. So those retail dealers that listen to us, we brought on a very special guest, our friend Darisol. He's out in Arkansas. And Jeff, he was on a How I Built This podcast. What number was that?
Yeah, if you want to go back and get the history on Dare, it's 261, guys. You can go back to 261. But Dare, man, how you doing? How are things going out there?
That's right, man. We're growing. We're rocking and rolling. We haven't slowed down. We've had to change with the market as it's it's always changing. And if you're a dealer with inventory, it's always going to change. And so that's something that we're trying to stay on top of daily. But yeah, we're doing good. We just had a record month. We sold 107 cars last month retail. As a record month from us. We just hit another record in August at 105. So we're continuing to trying to scale up here in Central Arkansas. It's been good.
Well, you know, it's funny. I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Jeff, we had a dealer on Donald Sullivan up in Virginia. And he was talking about at some point he sold too many cars, and he was not making as much money because of the increase in sales and the increase in floor plan problems and expenses. Dare, where are you there? Or do you know where your sweet spot is? Do you have the problem when it comes to floor plan? Kind of walk us through that.
So I used to think that there was a sweet spot. But this volume model, volume does solve a lot of problems. And what it does is it gives you the advantage of flushing out some old inventory, being able to send a customer to F&I. We lost like $7,000 on a Yukon the other day. Don't ask me how. We've had to put a motor and a transmission in it before it ever got to the front line. Terrible buy. It happens, right? It happens. Yes. We sent him to the box. And, it was only like a net grand loss. And so that's the beauty of the retail car business is you have that opportunity to take care of a customer, send him to the box and not just completely lose your rear end on a car. Now, having said that, your question was, what was your question again?
Where's the sweet spot?
Yeah.
So you can sell a lot of cars, but not make a lot of money.
So I lost my train of thought. But selling 100 cars, it was a very profitable month for us. But you just have to scale it right. You have to follow the process, and that's what we've done from the very beginning: is continue to follow the process and in how we're sending the customer to F&I and trying to hit all of the boxes there.
And Dare, you own your own reinsurance company, so when you send them to the box, especially when you put a motor and transmission in the car, that thing's going to last. So, I mean, is that goes into your train of thought as well, I assume?
Oh yeah. That's everything is reinsurance.
No, I agree.
So walk me back from the beginning. So when you say this kind of high turn type model, right? This V-Auto philosophy, what's your goal on the front end? Like, I mean, are you making $100, 200, 500, 5,000? Like, I don't really comprehend that front end gross goal.
Right. I think it's whatever the market dictates. I'm actually reading this book right here, Gross Deception. The guy that wrote V-Auto wrote it in 2016. And it's funny how, he's talking about these small gross profits, like in the, like the $70 range, the front end net profits on new and used. Wow. And so, even back then it was all about this turn and burn, this turn and earn type of profit where they're making all of their money on the back. And it really is insurance on volatile inventory markets. If you have a strong F&I manager, we used to do cradle to grave here at the dealership, but if you're selling over 50 cars a month and you don't have an F&I manager in retail, that's something that you really need to look for. And I preach that all the time because that's so important, having another face in front of them that's willing to, that has to eat on the gross profit percentage that he makes in F&I is huge if you're running any kind of volume at all.
So you're telling me like that philosophy of I'm going to buy a $20,000, $25,000 off lease, Nissan Altima. I'm going to make, after my pack, right? Say I put a $500 or $1,000 pack on it, I'm going to make $100, $500 over that, like my overhead, and then I'm making 500 on the front end.
Depends on where you bought it, but yeah, I mean, if you're that Nissan Altima, you need to price it 95% right out the gate, especially if it's like an SV. If it's a lower trim model, there's a lot competing right there in those lower trim models. So you're going to price that sucker 94, 95% right out of the gate. You may price it a loser, but it's then that goes into how good did you buy the car,
and how good your salesperson is, because your salesperson may be able to flip it to someone else, right?
Because we don't think about holding costs, guys. I mean, especially with interest rates, if we're holding that thing 30, 45 days, that thing's collecting every single day. It's like a horse. You got to feed it hay. The more hay you feed it, the more it's going to cost you. And at the end of the day, my dad's a horse trader. Sometimes he sells a horse for a lot of money, but if he's held on for it for 2 or 3 years, he didn't make a dime. And that's the same way we got to think of cars. Every day they're out in pasture, they're eating, Well,
let's go down that rabbit hole, because this model that you're talking about was prevalent from, let's say, 2015, 16 up into the edge of COVID. COVID happens there, and all of a sudden every car, truck, SUV you get your hands on, you can price 120 of market and probably sell it the next day. And you lived through that for probably 2.5 years. At what point in the last bit did that model of high grosses flip and go back to the model of these lower V-Auto models?
I think it was earlier this spring as we really started to take a shift. Back in November, a lot of us retailers kind of felt it. They felt it coming on. And so we ripped off the Band-Aid of a lot of older age units. Either we just flushed them out in retail, or we took them to the auction and took a loss. And a lot of guys wrote off a lot of stuff in November and December of last year because the books changed so much. And then we saw a little bit of a pickup in the spring, a bump, tax season bump. There seemed like there was a little shortage here or there, especially with like the new body style trucks and new body style Yukons and Tahoes, some of that higher end stuff, and your price range stuff that had good miles. Still a little scarce, but at the first of the summer, I'm talking like June 15th, we're already start to see 25% of our inventory go over 60 days. And that's a number that I track on this board behind me every single Monday, is what percentage of our inventory is over 60 days. This Monday, it was 16%. And we track it not only in unit count, but we also track it in dollars over 60 days. And that's something that because anything, over 50%, 60 days old spells bankruptcy. I don't care who you are, right? I don't care who you are if you're a retailer. So you want to keep that under 20% if you can. Really good dealers, have it under 10, and we're not there. I often talk about this is inventory is an infinite game. It never ends. You never completely flesh it out. You're always turning and burning. You're always buying and selling. The difference between finite and infinite games, I know you guys know that. A finite game, it's like a football game. It has 4 quarters and it comes to an end. An infinite game, the object of the game is just to continue to play. And as a used car retailer, we just have to continue to play, right? And the longer we play, the more money we make and more security that we have for our families. And that's really our goal here, is just to continue to look at that inventory. There's 2 things I say you never win. One is inventory and one is employees and team members. You're always constantly working on those 2 things, in the used retail, small business or large business or whatever you are,
You're so right there. I've never been able to put that in words, but the 2 things that I can use to control my sales are the one things that control me when it comes to sales are inventory recon, right?
Right.
Are the amount of employees I have. What we have seen in my opinion, the last 90 to 180 days is inventory has gotten easier to buy. And we're actually seeing more employees wanting to take our jobs. On the employee side there, where are you right now? Are you fully stocked or with people or no?
We're needing some key managers right now, and we've got some big job descriptions out there. But as far as like your your outfielders, we're all good there on outfielders. We've got plenty of detailers, and everybody needs techs, right? We all need techs.
Yeah.
I mean, we could always use more people, but as you scale up, as you're growing in business, when you begin to find those key people in your organization, you build around those guys, and we're needing a couple right now as we continue to move up the ladder.
So, yeah, and is that because of growth? I'm sorry, Jeff. Sorry to cut you out. Is that just because of growth there?
That's right. And so now I'm, where I was managing 50 cars, now I'm managing almost 200 cars, and I've kind of stepped back from that. I'm training another girl to be kind of like a used car manager, where we change prices daily. And that's another huge thing. We change prices every single day. In vAuto, there's a bucket. It's the most important button in vAuto. It's no price change in 7 days. And if that thing is not cleaned out and you're a retailer and you haven't changed your inventory in 7 days, then something's wrong. I don't care if you change it $1. What it does is it allows those algorithms or those third parties to kind of reset, re-engage those people that have looked at those vehicles. And all of a sudden you start getting more leads. I mean, we've changed a vehicle $50 and immediately start having people come and give us those leads, those valuable leads that we need for BDC and to get people in the door,
All I can think about is there a point where your turn time is too fast? Like, are you giving away the farm, or is that like not even a thing where it's like, hey, if that car showed up and I sold it in 24 hours, I don't care.
You left
I'm winning. I'm rolling to the next one.
Okay. So this is huge right here. Everybody know your strike zone. What is your strike zone? We have 10 cars we sell. I could probably name Ram 1500s, 2500s, F-150s, Silverados, Equinoxes, Terrains, Yukons, Tahoes. We have 10 cars in our strike zone. And we know when those cars get here, we know what we can sell them for. And so we're probably going to put those 10 cars. We might ignore vAuto for a minute because we just sold one for X amount. But we'll listen to it, but we might ignore it in that strike zone. In that strike zone, we can get 100 to 105%. And we can't have all of our, 200 cars stocked with those exact models. But we know when we get those cars right down the middle, we knock it out of the park with those cars, and we'll leave it, we may leave that price and maybe just adjust it $1 until it gets 30 days. And then we'll start stripping pieces off of it. So that's what I have encouraged everybody from the day one. Know what you sell, know what you can sell it for.
It's the same. I mean, it's the same in my business. Of course, like we talk about, I'm buy here, pay here, but I do know the 5 cars that if I buy today, as soon as they hit the front line, we'll sell it. I know exactly what we'll sell it for. What is the number there? Is it, should a dealership focus on 5 to start with, then expand it? Or should you really have 10 go-tos? I guess depends on how much inventory you got too, right?
Hey, everybody, real quick, Buckeye Dealership Consulting sponsor the podcast. And obviously, when we talk about slim front end grosses and trying to make a lot of it on the back end, your own reinsurance company is a great way to capture all that.
Man, I tell you, if you're not doing it that way, you're making all these third-party warranty companies a lot of money. And if you can take that money and make it yourself, how much better is that, Jeff, than you're making it? Dealership's making back-end profit. And if you're owning the reinsurance company, you're making that profit.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you got to capture more upstream and downstream options in markets like these when you are a vAuto type philosophy, right? Whether it's all your reinsurance products and even your aftermarket products in general that Buckeye can help you set up with, whether it's, some of these other type reinsurable items that you could sell to your customers. So reach out to the guys at Buckeye, see what is right for you in your retail dealership.
Yeah, that's dependent on each and every person. I mean, like when we started, there was like 3 vehicles that we buy. Like in the very beginning, it was a Nissan Maxima, like a Chevy Impala, and a
Right.
Malibu or something. And I would just go to the auction and look for those 3 makes and models, and they just happen to sell. And what you'll find is like a body change, a body style, even if it's old, like people are attracted, like the old cat eye Chevy, people are attracted to those. And you can't go buy those older rigs, but like 16s and 17s and 18s, like you'll find that people in your market are really attracted to certain makes and models. And with the technology that we have out there today, there's no reason why you can't source those vehicles and source them at a high level.
Yeah. I think the basic philosophy you're saying though is, like you said, know what works well in your market, right? Obviously based on where you position yourself, your area, but also knowing those cars is such an advantage because then you know what to look for, the hurdles to jump over, if this is going to show up, this is the problem. Your techs start getting really familiar with how to fix this common issue. I found for me, like, yeah, my one-off like stupid buys on like a Friday night when I'm bored and on Manheim, those are always the worst, right? Because they're like, you see some shiny, like Chevy Bolt. And you're like, oh, who doesn't want a Chevy Bolt? It's all electric. It gets 150 miles.
And he doesn't even drink, Dare. I mean, what the world? I drink on Friday nights and do stupid stuff like this.
Yeah, you do. But it really is like those one-offs that will just like sit forever. And then when you start collecting too many of those, then it's like all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of little island of misfit toys. Or if you're trying to chase too many things, man, you start getting into stuff you just don't know. Yeah, you can make a lot of those bad decisions.
That's right. That's right. You got to have a business plan and stick with it.
There, interest rates have raised, 500 basis points in just a matter of a blink of an eye. You're dependent on banks, large banks, to finance these cars for people. How are you overcoming the hurdle of 18 months ago, your 800 credit scores were buying at 1.9%, and now we're at 7 and 8%. How have your F&I guys, how are they battling that? How are you winning this game and letting that sink into your customer's brain?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. When we're penciling them, the first pencil comes in, we're penciling at 12%, no matter what the customer is, 800 Beacon or whatever, just so we can set a realistic expectation. And we're penciling with a price range between, really $100, depending on what that interest rate comes back with at the bank once we get them bought. And so it is really tough, but our guys are doing a pretty good job with the word tracks as far as like, had you bought 2 years ago, yes, you would have got a better interest rate, but you would have paid $10,000 more for the vehicle. Yeah. Right. And so as a consumer, I would rather pay less on principal and a little bit more on interest rate because the feds are going to lower the rates in 2 years. And that way you've got less principal paid off. You can double up on some simple interest payments because every contract we write with all these national banks is simple interest. There's no Rule 72 anymore. And so at the end of the day, you're actually in a better position than you were 2 years ago, paying a much higher price, for that truck, because face it, they were paying over MSRP for trucks with 50,000 miles 2 years ago, and people are still in that situation. And so it's the same, and that's what we try to educate the customers are, and it really is the same. It's just a matter of kind of getting over those hurdles, and it's really an ego thing, I think, with people right now. Right? It's like, well, I've never financed anything for 10%. Well, 100%. You didn't live in 1978 because everybody was financing at 10 and 12% in 1978. So that's just
or higher.
Getting people out of that mindset, and we've done a decent job with it. We haven't, knock on wood, experienced the banks. We've experienced banks pulling out, but we've also experienced banks, pushing the lever forward, where that market is kind of like open. Some of these other banks and credit unions have opened up to us, but some of them have definitely pulled out for sure.
I love that you are using word tracks and your guys are using word tracks to overcome those objections. And that's what we all should do. Is this something, I'm sure you're having sales meetings every week, is this something you came up with, this word track, to help your guys? Is this something y'all train on every week to make sure you're staying focused?
Yeah, so as when the Fed was starting to raise rates back in the fall, like we noticed used car prices were going down, and so it just made sense to us. And and we educate our customers on the fact that we use vAuto. We say, hey, we pay a lot of money for this software to make sure that you have the best deal. We're not pricing our stuff 105% of market. You're getting 95% of the market or better, and we're the number one dealer, and you don't drive way out here because the price is too high. And not only are you getting a great deal, but you're saving, because 2 years ago, you'd have paid $10,000 more for the same vehicle. And so I think that, yeah, that's something that we really just developed on our own because we just saw the trend in the market a year ago.
Yeah, it's super interesting how most of the time, like our salesmen, you bring someone back a 8 or 9 or heaven forbid a 12% callback on a good credit customer. They freak out, and the salesman's just like, yeah, man, interest rates are high right now. Because like that's our gut reaction as well. It's so stupid. Like, yeah, you gotta train these guys to have the right, attitude. It's the same people that come to me that want advice on buying a house. It's like the same thing. Yeah, guess what? Your interest rate's high on a house, but you're negotiating the price lower than you would have 2 years ago, right?
And it's not historically. And the rates aren't historically high, which is another thing we have to get over. Have you seen an increase in cash deals compared to 2 years ago?
No.
Okay.
We're 20/80, 20% cash. It's remained the same. Probably a few more USAA deals, Navy federal deals. Some of that military money is still cheaper than anything that we can find on the market. But that's the only thing that is because we really do like, okay, you're bringing this cash to us. Are you financing this cash? Let's help us beat that rate that you're getting. And what we found is the two that we can't really overcome is that military money. It's just really good deals for them sometimes.
What's a typical car payment? What do you see in typical payments come back at monthly?
$700.
Okay.
On a $35,000 rig,
Yeah.
And most customers are coming in with some equity. We're not doing a whole lot of negative equity. I mean, we do it, but most of them are coming in with some equity.
What's that like? I mean, I guess we always talk about this huge negative equity issue that people are going to have from all these COVID cars that they bought at 120% of MSRP. You're not seeing that right now, or you think those people are holding back, or they just know they can't trade in, or?
It seems like we'll get 3 in a row, and I'll ask my finance manager or my desk manager, I'm like, hey, is the tide turning? Are we fixing to see, is this all we're going to see? And it kind of scares us for a minute, but then we think back to all of the history that we've had. And it's like, we've always seen these people tank 10 grand, 15 grand. And we really have, there's somebody that's going to come in and just bought, and, they're just going to be underwater. But I don't think it's an epidemic like we thought it was going to be. I mean, by rule of thumb, people usually try to do the right thing, and they're trying to make an extra payment here or there because they do know that they bought high. It's just that one-off here and there. You'll see like, wow, that guy's 20 grand upside down.
Yeah.
And we've always seen it in the car business.
Lenders aren't really rolling a lot of that right now. You're not seeing a lot of lenders loaning above going to 110, 120% of loan value.
No. And that's been a bit of a challenge too, is they're capping you on the front end of the deal. Yeah. Now, your major national banks, Ally, Cap One, some of those, they're letting you have all the money on the back because it's charge backable, right? It's a little safer investment for them because the dealer's got some skin on the game on that number. But line 3 is capped on the front for sure.
Yeah. What have gas prices? I know you sell a bunch of trucks. What have gas prices done to slow it down, or is it affect at all?
It hasn't affected us. Back when it was $4 2 years ago, when the new administration took office and they were shutting down pipelines and all that kind of stuff, I think everybody had a knee-jerk reaction and pulled back for a month, and we saw a dip in truck sales, and we sold a few more Corollas that month, but it quickly dissipated. It's a non-issue right now.
Seems like everybody's gotten used to where we are outside of something catastrophic happening. We're, riding in that $3 to $4 range is like, you just,
yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. It's 2023. I mean, $3, $3.50 for a gallon of gas. I mean, you can't ask for much better than that.
Yeah. It's just weird that everybody's gotten used to $3 to $4 a gallon, but I guess that's the times we're living in.
That's right.
You wholesale a bunch of cars, or you wholesale some cars, I should say. What do you see going on OVE and in the auctions? Is there anything concerning that dealers should be looking at?
So this is where I don't know that the strike is I don't even think it's a factor right now at all, because are we going back to COVID times, whatever. I mean, it might get that way, but when I start to see offers on OVE, people are starting to get desperate, right? They're starting to franchise dealers are kicking in the market and starting to buy used again. And that's really what drives a lot of this, is the franchise dealers buying used. That's what drove the whole frenzy for the last 2 years, because they knew they weren't going to be able to get cars, and they better fill up their lots on used inventory to keep their salespeople employed. And we haven't seen that yet. There's no, during the COVID, the 2 year, my phone was just going crazy with OVE offers and smart auction offers. And that has not happened yet. So that's completely cooled off. We're retailing very few on OVE, very few on smart auction. The only thing we're really wholesaling right now is our trade-ins with 200,000 miles. And those are bringing really good money at the auctions. But the OVE and smart auctions have cooled off. But I can tell you, when they start to ramp up again, that's when you as a retail dealer need to maybe start raising your prices, because it could be a turn of the tide.
Hey, Jeff, one more thing. You need cash to do business, and Primalend is the place to go to get that money.
Yeah, you always want to be shopping the rates, right, guys? Those things can eat you alive, your money, your cost of capital. It ain't cheap right now, right? We talk about interest rates. Let me rephrase that. Not cheap. It's not the same as it was, right? Not what some of us could be used to. But guess what? If you can make your model work with these interest rates, you're going to be even better off if interest rates chill, or if they stay the same for a while, right? Build your model at a reasonable rate, which is today.
Yeah, and you got to have cash to do business. So don't stress yourself. Go get you a little cash, pay a little more right now. The rates are going to come down. Talk to Primalend, they'll take care of you.
It's interesting to be able to time that, right? In the V-Auto model, those things could change in 30 or 60 days. And all of a sudden you sold out of everything that you had yesterday's prices, and you sold them super cheap, and now you're going to replace them again. So it almost seems like when that starts to turn the other direction, you're going to leave some money on the table, but I guess you're trying to not lose on the downside either. So do you know any other dealers? I look at some of these guys in my town, and I'll sometimes get on there, some of the software I have will let me see their days in inventory. And some of these guys that are sitting on a whole slew of big fat trucks that aren't exercising the philosophy you have you seen some of these guys go under? I can't even imagine the losses that some of these folks have taken on some of these trucks the last 12 months.
It's got to be close. And I've been saying this for 3 years. We have not saw this guy that's down on his luck, because as smart entrepreneurs, and everybody that's listening to this podcast should be, as smart, educated entrepreneurs, you should thrive in a down market. You just got to be ready, right? And so that's why we just keep your head on a swivel. There is coming a time where these guys are going to be hurting. Number one, it gives you the opportunity to scoop up some inventory. Number two, it might give you the opportunity to buy a business, to buy another store, to do whatever. Just keep your eyes open, because I don't think we've quite hit, I don't even think we've hit a recession. I was talking to my banker the other day. He says, for the first time, we've seen these credit card increases and people living off of credit. That tells me that their money's run out. The student loan payments are starting again, and everything's still high. Maybe inflation's cool, but it hasn't gone down, and wages are not going up anymore. So we're kind of in a teeter totter, I think, and we're going to be there at least until the holidays. And I don't know what happens after that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Christmas debt. I was speaking with someone last night that works for one of the nationwide credit card issuers, right? They do the branded credit cards with like, Victoria's Secret and things like that. And of course, during COVID, we all know that everyone was paying their debts, right? Consumer debt was at all-time low.
Absolutely.
She said right now, she's like, I feel so bad for my collectors because it is so tough to get people to pay. She said
how do you repo
default rates are strong on consumer credit cards right now.
How do you repo lingerie?
Yeah. No, thank you. Not interested.
Dare, what right now, what is the number one thing you suggest retail dealers do to prepare for the next 60 days?
This is what I've been talking about. Keep your inventory and your time to line tight, right? As soon as you get the car, let's get it reconditioned. Let's get it on the website. Let's get it on your third parties. Let's make sure that we have lots of pictures on the website. You need 40 pictures on your website, and let's get it out there quick. And let's get this thing priced aggressive, because what's going to keep you safe is quick turn times, especially in a volatile market, especially when you don't know what to do. You're going to know if inventory starts getting short again. Stuff's going to sell a little bit easier. You're going to have people come make you some wholesale offers. But my two recommendations: make sure your service, make sure your time to line is under 10 days. 7 days is optimal. And then get that thing online. Get a lot of pictures. Get it on your third parties as a retailer, and make sure you start getting some eyeballs, some VDPs. Make sure you work every lead. If you don't have a BDC, make sure you're getting to these leads fast, under 5 minutes. It's not acceptable under 15 minutes anymore. You got to get to these leads under 5 minutes and set up you a system. If you don't have a CRM, I'm sure your lead providers are emailing you. Make sure you're getting to those leads fast.
Man, that's awesome.
Talk to me, Dare, about give me the philosophy to sell an aged unit, because I struggle with that, right? As a buy here, pay here dealer, I'm like, look, there's a butt for every seat. Like, I'm eventually going to sell that freaking Kia Soul that's been sitting out there for 200 days. At what point, like at 100 days, do I just need to take my loss? And how do you wrap your brain around that philosophy of just saying, hey, man, we gotta blow this thing out, and I'm gonna take a big old kick in the pants on this, but I gotta do it.
Well, I don't know about you, but the longer the car sits on the lot, it's not a good car anymore. There's a reason that car hasn't sold. It's not just because it's a Kia Soul. Like, I don't know, you don't talk to every exit interview on your customers, but somebody's sat in that car, somebody's drove it around, and they didn't buy it for some reason. So get rid of it. 100 days, get rid of it. Freshen that money, freshen that capital. A lot of times customers are driving something and they're too nice to say that it just like it stinks, or the steering wheel was worn, or the buttons didn't look good, or something. Like, it's the littlest things that drive customers away. I would say even in buy here, pay here, whether it's, whatever it is. And I would just say freshen the money, tighten your buying processes, and, keep that fresh.
Do you ever think that if you just put the car back on the transporter and sent it down 500 miles and then dragged it back 500 miles and everyone saw it as new inventory, and you just repriced it at today's prices and sent it back through the shop, that they'd think it's a brand new car and be excited to sell it? Because if you're going to go wholesale this thing, like, you're going to take that aged unit, wholesale it to Luke. Luke's going to bring it in like brand new inventory, clean it all up, pretty it, put it on the front line, and sell it in 7 days.
That's right. So Luke's going to fix the buttons, right? He's going to fix the buttons that weren't selling. Yeah. He's going to be in it better than I was, and he's going to sell it in 7 days. You're exactly right.
So why not do that to yourself?
You could. And there's a dealer in one of my groups, one of my 20 groups, that actually does that. He takes it off the website. He does the whole recon process again, assigns it a different stock number. The different stock number gets it into the front of Car Gurus, because Car Gurus is smart. If it uses the same stock number, it still says it's in your inventory for 100 days. I personally don't do it. If I had another roof, I would definitely try to start. If you got two rooftops, back and
forth a little bit,
bounce them back and forth, but go through the whole process again. Like, send that thing to the shop. Make sure that you didn't miss anything, no smells, anything like that was driving a customer away.
I think that's a big issue, because you do have to bring it back in at today's wholesale value, right? Rebook it. And then your shop can't look at the old ticket. I think a lot of times your service writer will be like, well, we've already spent $2,000 on this thing. I can't fix that steering wheel. I can't put another $500 into the steering wheel. And you're like, well, they don't have the whole picture, right? They're seeing the little split. Oh man, I can't put more recon into this. And you're like, no, bro, if you don't, I'm taking a $3,000 wholesale loss, right?
Yeah.
So let's do the $500 steering wheel and let's get it retailed. How
100%.
closely there do you track your overhead per car? Because it seems to me in this kind of like a speed model, you need to know exactly what it costs you to sell a vehicle to know if you're even making money. I mean, is this something you track like monthly, every week? Like you add a new salesman, you add a new service writer, you add a new sales position, all of a sudden, you're adding another $50 to every single car you sold.
That's right.
How close do you track that?
I mean, you should know your PVR expense, what you got to pay to per sell a car, and ours is like $3,300. That's up from the early days where it was like $1,500.
Wow.
So as you continue to grow, that's just going to be a number that you have to monitor. I don't know that there's a sweet spot. I would say much over 3,500, you better be really raking it in per car.
Yeah. Because you got to know that number when you look at a slim front gross and you're like, all right, man, we made 500 on the front. I got to make $2,500, on the back end, or this is a loss. And I take too many of those this month and I'm out of business as well. Right.
It is. But at the same time, I always say activity breeds activity. And the more plates that you have on the back of cars running down the road, the more Facebook pictures, social repeats, referrals. If you put a good car with a good customer that's going to say good things about you, that's the best advertisement you can have. And that's why volume, the right kind of volume, solves a lot of problems, because it's the unseen things that go behind the scenes that you don't see when you're doing your processes right. That's why volume is so successful in the car business.
Super interesting.
Well, Dare, we really appreciate your time today, and I know the retail dealers out there did. So we look forward to having you back soon, and good luck.
Dealers helping dealers. Please leave us a review and subscribe. The Independent Dealer Podcast.